we are going to train on this closer framework, and this framework actually came. There's 4 different people that I am going to kind of insert in here that I've heard this framework utilized with, but the person who actually came up with the acronym is his name is Alex Hormozi. But this framework is influenced by Grant Cardone, Alex Hormozi, Tanner Chister, Frank Kern, and it just works really well. So the whole idea is that instead of having to memorize, and I thought this would be really, really helpful for you guys, because I know that one of the things that when I first started, the way that I learned to grab all this information was in paragraph form. But I know that that's not the best framework for everybody to learn off of. Because in the beginning, I was trying to learn it for me, not anybody else. And so I needed to know what I was going to say, so I wrote everything out. But for training other people and helping you guys utilize it, I don't think that works as well, because the way I'm going to say it is going to be the different way that you're going to say it. And so that's one of the reasons why this acronym works really, really well. So I'm going to explain the acronym, and then I'm going to explain to you how this works when you're actually utilizing this. So when you're doing this acronym, you're clarifying why that person is actually there. And then we'll kind of go into these questions in a second. Then you're going to label them. So that way you can essentially go, okay, so it sounds like helping your child improve focus is the #1 goal. Is that right? Like, we're asking that question and we're labeling what the problem is so that we can then come back and address it. The next part is overviewing the past pain. And as you guys know, like, we did this a lot, especially when you and I were selling through, like, in the pandemic. Like, we were really digging in. What have you done in the past? How did that help? What, all those types of things. Sell the vacation. I really like this, and I'm going to expand upon this. The way in which Alex Hormozi actually explains it is like this. You want to think about it like if you were selling a vacation to Maui. All right, and so you're going to sell this beautiful vacation. You would talk about the weather, you would talk about the beaches, you would talk about how the feeling when you're going to be there, you're going to talk about the status, like all your friends are going to be jealous of you going to Maui, right? Like all these things. But what you would not talk about is how long it's going to take at the airport. The fact that you're going to have to go through TSA. That when you go through TSA, you're going to be pulled off to the side and they're going to search you. And then after that, you're going to lose your luggage. And then after that, you're going to land on the island with no luggage and then have to go to the hotel and quarantine because of all the COVID procedures. Like, you're not going to talk about all those things because that sounds like a lot of work, right? It doesn't sound like you're selling the vacation. Going to Maui, having fun in the sand, like all that stuff. All right, so explain away the concerns. That's where we work on overcoming the objections and loops, and then reinforcing the decision. This is what happens afterwards, which we have started to get better at with new student orientation and tagging them in the group, because some interesting statistics that I just actually found out about. So between the sale and let's say the first class, there's this big gap right in here. And in this gap, people are making the decision on whether or not they're going to stay until the end of that program. Is really what it is. So this is one of the things where, like, why when we don't have a good first class, right? When the greeting gets messed up or something like that happens, they're making that decision somewhere around this mark right here. So what are the things that we can do in between? I gave you $400 down to my first class or my white belt presentations next Friday, right? There's a long gap in between. So how do we close that gap? We'll reinforce it. So we'll talk about some of this in just a little bit. All right, so let's start off with clarify, and that C right there. So first part, somebody comes in, no matter what program that they're doing, you're going to ask them these questions. You're going to say, hey, so what made you come in today? Like, why did you guys choose to bring Johnny into class? What made you try out our kickboxing class today? If they say, oh, we just wanted to try it out, you have to dig past that, which we've already discussed in the past. So, it's got to be, well, yeah, so I totally get it, but why not watch video on YouTube? What are you hoping to gain from your experience here, right? Or somebody says, well, I just wanted to try out kickboxing. Really? I mean, like, you could try out Taibo, online, like, why now? Why do you think you need to come into a physical martial arts school in order to get this? And then you're going to dig to the real point, which is going to go here. Okay, so this is what we're going to do really quick. We're going to practice this. So it'll be you guys practicing, well, I'll let you two practice, Mr. Daniel, and I'll practice. That'll make it easier. So you're going to ask these questions. What made you come in today? So what's your goal right now? Why is that important to you? Now, you don't have to ask both of these, but this is a good segue. This is just a questioning framework. You're asking questions instead of having a script where it's blah, 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 blah. And it's easy to remember where you should be. Like, has anybody ever gotten thrown off in the middle of a sale because somebody went off on a tangent and you're like, where am I at? What am I supposed to be talking about next? Has that ever happened? Yes, you?
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody? So if you can remember this, then you can go, okay, I already clarified what's next label. Okay, so your problem that you're having right now, if I'm understanding correctly, is Johnny's not listening to you. So really improving that focus at home, right? And now we're back on track for closers. That's how that whole thing's supposed to go. Okay? So clarify, go back and forth. Boom, boom, boom. So the main thing here is when you get to, before you transition on, you have to find out why it's important to them. Before you label, like, so it sounds like Walker has a, discipline problem or whatever.
You told me why it was important.
Okay.
And then I just did that on
You just went ahead and went through it. Yeah, so that's great. So I caught the end of that. So I just worked with Mr. Daniel on this
because I said, why is that important to you? And he's like, I don't want to be stressed out.
There you go.
And I said, okay, so it sounds like him being unfocused
Yes.
at home is causing you stress.
Yes. So this is where we go into label. So it sounds like blah is your goal, right? So that's where, so we want to take whatever their pain point is. Like, so if it was, not being, like Johnny, not having enough discipline, then what's the, if I say he's just running around like crazy, he doesn't listen to what I say. If I said those words, because a lot of times parents aren't going to use the word discipline or, something unless we suggest it, right? Or respect. Sometimes they will. But then you're going to want to label it into something that we can actually bring up in the lesson and in the conversation. So it sounds like Johnny's really struggling with self-discipline. So does that sound like something that you would want him to have more of? Is that your goal? And then boom, that's how you would feed that in. Does that sound about right? Like, we're asking them this question to only get this response. Okay, these are only yes responses. This is an open-ended question. This is a yes response. If it's a no response, then we need to come back to it and get a yes. If they say, no, that's not really what it is, okay. So you go back to this. So tell me again, what's your goal with this? And then you go right here. Like, why is that important to you? Okay, it sounds like what you're telling me is the confidence in him being able to stand up and talk for himself, that's important to you. Does that sound about right? Confidence overall? Yes. So, yes question, open-ended question. Right? So we're going to go right here to overview the past pain because we're going to chain all three of these together. I think that you guys understand this concept that we wanted it to be a yes. But on this one, what have you tried so far at home? What have you tried so far to accomplish this? How'd that work out for you? What else have you tried? The last piece is something that, I'll be honest, I've heard it said in a couple of different ways, but I really haven't focused on adding it into a framework, but I think it's really going to help y'all a lot because I tend to do this when I'm selling, but it's not intentional. I'll be honest, it's not intentional. It happens sometimes. It doesn't happen sometimes. And as we know, like if we have more intentionality about things, we're going to get a better outcome. So at the end, we need to let this person understand that their efforts for what they've done is not, it's not like a bad thing that they've gone through all this. Because if we get them to this point of pain and we're just like letting them sit in the pain and we don't bring them back up, they're digging into very personal pain that is not going to feel good. Like at this point, we are starting to transition from a logical process to an emotional process. So this is where we hit the emotion. If you notice, we've got logic up here, logic, emotion, emotion, logic, logic. So these two elements right here are your emotional elements. And when you're selling, you're gonna have two different parts of the brain that you're trying to sell to. You're trying to sell to the logical side of the brain, and you're trying to sell to the emotional side of the brain. And if you sell only to the logical side of the brain, there will be no motivation to make the sale occur right then. There will be no reason to do it today unless I create a logical reason for them, which we'll talk about this kind of over here. But if I let them sit in this emotional stuff too long without getting to the low part and the upper part, I'll never be able to get to the close at the end. So once I go here, I would say, like, you know, if Johnny is, I've tried, you know, taking away toys. I've tried doing this. I've tried, you know, timeouts. That doesn't work. I've sent him in his room, and she goes in and she gets all the cookies, right? With our latest goal setting, right? And I just don't know what to do. Well, listen. Thank you for your honesty. Like, you can say that. Thank you for your honesty. Thanks for being open with me. I just want to let you know, like, it's not your fault. You're trying to do all these things, but you're just missing, like, 1 to 2 crucial pieces. And I'd love to tell you how our program can actually help with that. Would you be okay with that? So when we get to here, we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to ask permission. Before we get to the sell the vacation. So listen, it's not your fault. You just have a few pieces missing, and that's actually something that we do in our program. Would it be okay if I just shared with you how we do that? And then you can go into selling the vacation. I'm going to explain these points here in a little bit. So here's what I want you to do now. We're going to go through. You're going to go ahead and work on this, clarifying, labeling, overviewing. You're going to do this whole sequence to here, and we're going to pause at sell the vacation. So don't sell the vacation. We're not going to Maui yet. Ms. Chaffin, you're with Mr. Daniel. Mr. Austin, come on up. Let's go. In front of the camera.
Oh boy, okay.
Got your new haircut. We're going to put you fresh on the scene.
For what? What am I coming for?
Here, let me
Kid?
just say it for you.
You know,
Go ahead.
Johnny has just not been
So,
listening to me.
what
so
brought
I
you?
just-
What made you come in today?
You know,
Okay,
Beckett
so what would be your goal
really
with that
thinks
right
that
now
he,
with him,
you know, he wants to do
just
karate.
not listening?
I'm hoping that he'll get a little bit more
Just
focused
doing
on
things
this,
the first
honestly.
time. I
Okay,
told him
and
to.
so is your
Okay, okay.
So what's your goal right now? Is it
and
to help
why is
with
that important
focus
to you?
or?
Yeah,
actually
listening.
do things that I tell him to
focus,
do.
yeah.
And why is listening
Okay.
important?
So it sounds
Oh, I
like
like how you
just
did that. Good job.
getting Johnny to listen,
Um,
you know, the first time.
Really,
with
just
whatever
making sure that I don't have to
task
repeat
or,
myself 3 or
you
4
know,
times
thing you get him to
because
do
it's
is your
aggravating.
goal.
I'll just be
Does that
honest.
sound
It's
about
just
right?
aggravating.
Okay.
Gotcha. So it sounds like your goal
And
right
what have
now
you tried
is to help him
in the
follow
past
through and
to
have some more
get
discipline
Johnny
with
to
listening?
listen more?
Yes.
Okay, so that
Just
sounds about
making
right so
sure,
far.
you know,
Yes.
he's
Okay,
actually
cool. And what have you
looking
tried
at
to
me
accomplish this
and-
at home?
sometimes yelling, but
Definitely
Okay.
trying to get his attention.
How
Sometimes
has that worked
send
so
him to
far
his
for you?
room
Okay.
for
Not
time
so
out
good,
when
I'll
he's
be
not
honest.
listening.
Okay.
How's
okay.
that worked before?
Have you tried anything
It
else?
works, you know.
We-
It works
I
for
mean,
the moment, but then we're right back
no,
to it.
not really.
Okay, I gotcha. Have
Okay.
you tried anything else
Um,
besides those two things?
So
We did
you know,
try a
so
chart where
understand,
like you
you
get
know, where you're
smiley
at right
faces
now,
and words and
with
stuff
just,
like that.
you know,
So-
not being
Cool. Well,
compliant
thank you for your
first,
honesty. But
listening
it's not your
first
fault.
time
I just think
and
you're
all
missing a couple
Um,
key pieces.
it's not your
missing
fault.
in this whole process. Is it
I
okay if I
do
talk about
think that
our program
we're
and
just
how I
missing a
help
few
you?
Yes.
pieces of the puzzle
Cool.
so that we
That
can
was
get
good.
him, you know,
Is
down
that
that road.
interesting? What
Um,
felt
is
a little
it,
unnatural for you?
Asking
Is it
permission,
okay
actually.
if
Asking
This is
permission?
what I
I
usually
shows
ask
with
because
you
I
now?
usually just say like a program usually help out with that and then go into it.
Right. This point right here will get that yes train going now.
Okay.
Okay.
Definitely.
Ready?
One thing I will say on this,
Do kickboxing.
to help out
Sure.
with this thing.
Okay.
Um,
So, what made you
Not
come
your
in today to
fault.
try out
It's all
kickboxing, Miss
yeah.
Chapman?
So when you're saying
I just
what I want you to
really
do is I want
ask
you to try and
my-
change your tone in here.
my healthy
Okay.
self.
So
Okay.
Okay.
make this
yeah,
the
gotcha.
really like this is
What
the
would be your
upbeat,
goal
blah, blah, blah,
throughout
blah,
the
blah,
program?
and then I want you to bring it down and go. I
I'm
got
actually
you. Okay.
really my goal
So
is
what else have you
just to
tried?
listen.
You know that whole thing that we talked
Okay.
about last time.
Okay.
Listen,
Why is that important?
totally
for
understand
you?
where you're coming from. It's not
you
your
know,
fault.
I've
You're
put
not.
on
It's not
more
like
pounds than I cared to
nonchalant. Like,
admit
listen,
in the
it's-
last couple of years. And
a lot of
I
parents
just,
are in the same exact boat as you and tried
I'm
a
not
lot of
quite
different
sure
things. And it's not your fault
what
that he's
happened
not
or what the
getting it
difference
right now.
was,
So
but I
if you're
just
thinking that,
I
don't
wanna
worry
start
about that.
moving in
There's
the
just a
right
few
direction
pieces
as
that
far
you're
as
missing.
being
And I
happy.
really
Okay,
believe
gotcha.
that our program
So
is going to
it sounds
be
like to
that
me,
missing piece
your
for
goal
you.
throughout
So
the
do you mind if I
program
go ahead
would
and share
be
some
getting
details about
back
the
in shape,
program and
getting
tell
to
you a
a
little bit
place
more
where
about
you
it?
feel good,
See how I did
and
that?
losing some weight.
And
Does
that'll
that sound
be
about
a
right?
little bit
Yeah.
more
Okay, gotcha.
natural kind of boom.
What have
into
you
this,
tried so
and then it's
far?
the
You know,
asking
before
permission
this.
Okay.
Cool.
You know,
I'll let
just
you go have a
kinda
seat and we'll let them wrap up.
on my own.
So I was just
Yeah.
explaining to him about the not your fault part. So
Yeah.
you definitely have to put a little bit more flair on the front end of it before
Right.
you get to here. And then this part right here, your tonality has to change drastically.
Right.
So when you get to here, you're gonna slow down time. You're gonna lower your tone. So it's gonna be, they tell you what the problem is. So in order for them to pay attention, we have to drop the tone. So, if I was jumping into what I guess you're doing, fitness, right? What we were just doing. So I go, okay, so go ahead and tell me, like, what all have you tried before? And then blah. And then I see, okay, so how did that work out for you? Blah. All right. Anything else that you've tried? Boom. And then I gotcha. So it sounds like you've done a lot. Listen, it's not your fault that this hasn't worked for you in the past. So if you're thinking that, like, don't think that. I just think you're missing a few pieces. So is it okay with you if I share what our program does? Because I really believe that these are the missing pieces that you need. You see how I did that transition?
Absolutely.
So that's where that has to come in.
Even
It's a
in our
little
goal
different.
setting session, you could tell that the father was really beating himself up. So
Yeah.
at
Yes.
one point, I did have to say, "You're doing a great job. You're
Yeah.
a great dad. Whatever. It's just it takes a village, and we want to be your village. And
Right.
This is how I think we can help on our side if you're willing to look. Let
Yes.
us know." So.
Definitely. Mr. Austin actually mentioned that, like, asking for permission was a little bit more of was different because we normally just, blaze right into it and just say, let me go ahead and explain to you how our program works instead of asking for this permission. But the reason why that we really want to do this before the selling of the vacation, when you're sitting in this pain and you're getting to here, this little transition right here almost begs for you to say, hey, look, I think I have the answer. Do you feel comfortable if I share that with you? Right? It's totally different tone than saying, hey, so we actually have a program that's going to be able to help with that, and this is what we do. Because now I'm taking it to more of a group sales presentation instead of an individual, this is what we can do for you kind of thing. Okay? All right, so we're going to go into selling the vacation and these different points that we have here. So the points are the same except at the bottom. So I want everybody to write down mentorship, accountability, and martial arts. That's going to be for kids. Mentorship, accountability, and martial arts. And then for the fitness side, it's mentorship, accountability, and fitness. You could also parentheses kickboxing on that as well. All right, I really I like Hormozi's take on this as opposed to the other gentlemen, the other sales people that I've studied, Cardone, Frank Kern, all of them. I really think this is really unique to him because it also picks up on some of the stuff that, if you've ever read the book Story Brand, it talks about how everybody culturally, like if you look back at the ancient cultures, how did traditions and culture get passed along? It was passed along through oral tradition. It was passed along through storytelling. That's how things got passed along, and before written type things got passed along, it was all about telling stories. And so we do some of this automatically when we're telling the stories, but instead of focusing on what we do, like we have a black belt stripe, we have an intensity stripe, we have a life lesson stripe. If you were to package all those things, what do they fall underneath? They kind of fall underneath mentorship. We're going to help your child become a black belt, not just in martial arts, but in life. And we do that through mentorship. And here's a really easy picture. There's two different pictures that you can pull from. Just depends on probably how young or how old this person is that you're talking to. So you can use Mr. Miyagi as an example, or you can use everybody has a teacher at some point that they really enjoyed, hopefully. Hopefully their whole entire school academic career, they had at least one teacher that was a great teacher. And you're going to pull from that to be able to use that as an example. All right, so I'm going to work with you, Mr. Austin. So come on up. Let's get you live in front of the camera. Okay, so you have a kiddo now. So we're talking about this. I already asked your permission. And so now we're going to talk about this. So one of the things I want to tell you is that in our program, we're going to help Walker in the area of mentorship. And the way I like to explain this to people is, have you ever seen Karate Kid with Mr. Miyagi?
Yeah.
And he's like, he takes Daniel-san under his wing, and it's wax on, wax off. And Daniel-san, in that example, he doesn't understand that what he's learning are character attributes, like discipline and focus. His confidence was below any type of level that was good for him in that movie. And then he learned respect, not only for himself, but for others. And that's what we do here. Our instructors are trained to bring out the best in Walker. So we're going to be Mr. Miyagi to him. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
See how I did that? So you can tie that in. Now, if they don't have a Mr. Miyagi reference point, which I just think is absolutely amazing because most people do. So you need to ask them first because that's the easiest one. If he's
Especially
like,
now,
I've never
never.
heard of Mr. Miyagi, I have no idea who he is. Then you're going to bring that over and be like, well, did you ever have a teacher that was a really great teacher in school for
Yeah.
you? Okay. That teacher probably helped you understand the main points and the main parts that you need to know in order to pass that class, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what our instructors do too, but we just do it for life. Because we don't want our students to go through life just trying to figure it out on their own. We're going to be helping and mentoring them in focus and confidence and discipline and respect so that they can pass the test of life, just like how that teacher poured into you. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
See how I did that? So you can use 2 examples. I don't know, some people may have never heard of Mr. Miyagi. I just find that hard to believe, but maybe that's the case. I know there's people who haven't heard of the Ninja Turtles, so I know.
That's crazy.
I know that's crazy. It's insane.
That's outrageous.
Yes, it's bad. Thank you. Okay, so next part is accountability. So this one, brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth is a really easy one, and Hormozy actually uses this, and so I was like, that's good. I'm gonna pull that over because I really like that. So I got a question for you. So right now, do you have to tell Walker like to brush his teeth?
Yeah, we do.
Like every day, every
Pretty
night?
much every night, right
Yeah,
before bed.
exactly. And when you were a kid, your parents probably did the exact same thing with you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the whole goal was to eventually get you to the point where you didn't need them to tell you to do that. You just did
Just
it.
did it,
You
yeah.
just did it on your own. Like, you're an adult now. You brush your teeth every day, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. Well, this is a great example of how we can use extrinsic or external accountability to create an internal habit. And that's what we do here too. So we're going to be making sure that Walker's coming to classes. We're going to be calling you guys. We're going to be making sure that he's attending the things that he needs to do and he's doing the things that he needs to do at home. And we're going to keep him accountable on the mat and in life because eventually that external accountability isn't going to be external anymore. It's going to be an internal habit that he's created. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
See how I kind of use that, right? And so this is a really easy teeth example. Just think about teeth and brushing your teeth. And then the last thing is martial arts. So you know how we have people sometimes they're like, well, what if my kid doesn't like it? Or what if he doesn't stay motivated this whole entire time? And I think you really use this in your upgrades too.
Right.
So you say, hey, so I've got a question for you. You have a Netflix or streaming subscription, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite show that you're binging right now?
Currently I'm binge watching Daredevil.
Oh, that's a good show. Yeah, that's really nice. Now, I'm gonna ask you a question. So, do you ever sit down and you're like, man, I gotta get the motivation to get ready to turn on Netflix, to turn on my TV and watch Daredevil? Like, do you ever have to work yourself up for that, or you?
Not really.
Not really, right? Like you just go in and you want to watch it because it's your favorite thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's the exact same thing that we do with our kids. Like our program is out of this world exciting. So when they come to classes, they want to do it. So we're kind of disguising all this other stuff that we talked about, like focus, confidence, discipline, respect, and we're packaging it in such a way that they want to be here every day, just like how you want to finish watching Daredevil and binge watching. It doesn't take effort for you to do that. And that's one of the reasons why kids love our program so much. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
So that's how we tie in those 3 things. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. All right, so that example works the same for kickboxing and fitness. So you can do the mentorship thing. Regardless if we're doing an 8-week challenge or not, you can
Right.
talk about Mr. Miyagi or the teacher that cared. The other thing you can do is you can straight and go through accountability. You can talk about brushing your teeth and the fitness side. The only thing that you're changing is that instead of martial arts being the thing, our kickboxing classes are the thing. And it's no different than you being excited to binge watch your favorite show. You're going to be excited to come to classes because the classes are exciting. And at the same time, it has a better benefit than binge watching. It has the benefit that you're learning, you're sweating, and you're engaging with the community. So you see how we do these 3 points. Now the interesting thing about this is that by selling it this way, it leaves all the other stuff that we normally have to talk to people about for new student onboarding. And it shortens the things that we actually need to say. Because I think sometimes when we may be saying all these things, and we've always said this, but I don't think now that I'm looking at it from this side, we've always said, well, it's a lot of information to get, and it goes in one ear and out one ear because they can't retain the information. And I totally agree, because we're trying to sell them on the feature that we're offering or the benefit we're offering instead of the transformation that we're offering. So if we focus on the transformation is about getting from point A to point B. All right. Another interesting concept that he talks about in one of the I think it was a book I was reading. He said, "Oh no. This is from another gentleman called his name is Maxwell Mueller." He says, if you were to go up to somebody who was in prison and you said, "Hey man, today's the day. I'm breaking you out of prison. Now I've got a question for you. Do you want to leave prison in a BMW or do you want to leave in a Tesla? Which would you prefer to leave in?"
He doesn't give a crap.
Exactly. He doesn't care.